Hi friends, welcome to video number 4 in our Was Jesus Tolerant series. Today we're looking at whether Jesus was tolerant of hypocrisy and falsehood. And I'm going to show you today that Jesus in fact was not at all tolerant of hypocrisy and falsehood. In fact, he actually reserved some of his harshest rebukes for people that he felt were in hypocrisy. And we actually see this scene where Jesus is addressing some religious leaders of the day. And these religious leaders of the day had professed to be holy and righteous in their behavior. But Jesus seemingly gets righteously angry at one moment and actually says to these religious leaders, "You are like whitewashed tombs, full of dead man's bones." What a powerful imagery to rebuke someone. He said, "You're like whitewashed tombs full of dead man's bones." In other words, the tomb seemed clean and white and nice on the outside, but it was full of dead man's bones. That's how he described one group of people. And these religious leaders before the people were outwardly demonstrating this version of religiosity and holiness, if you will, and practical righteousness. But on the inside, Jesus knew their hearts and their hypocrisy, that actually they were full of corruption. Actually, they were actually using the people for their own benefit. They were actually seeking out, the best seats in the public places. They were actually taking from people that were, oppressed and marginalized in society. And Jesus rebuked them harshly and said, "You're like whitewashed tombs full of dead man's bones." He had no time for people that claimed to be religious and holy on the outside and practically righteous on the outside, but internally they were impure and morally corrupt. These religious leaders, they worked to create a veneer, an outward appearance of moral superiority. But in fact, inside, on the inside, in their hearts, they were morally bankrupt and they were hypocritical, they were false. In fact, they were using their power, their influence to draw what they wanted from people, to gain what they wanted from people. And they were not true representatives of the way of God, the way of Jesus Christ. It's interesting these days that we're analyzing world leaders, whether it be politically or celebrities or just people of influence in society in general. Could be rock stars, sports people. It's interesting that in this day and age, we're looking for what's authentic. We're looking for, in our leaders, we want to see not just that they are good orators, good speakers, good singers, good presenters, but we actually want to see, what are they like behind the scenes? What are they like when they're not on the stage? What are they like when the lights go down? What are they like behind the camera? My generation, the millennials, there is a yearning and a desire to see what is authentic, to see that what they are in front of the camera, but when the lights go down, is the same as when they're in front of the lights, same as when they're in front of the camera. And there's this desire for the authentic. Jesus was saying from the beginning that he wants those that are authentic. He's seeking people to be authentic about where they are in life, not pretend, not be fake, not pretend a religiosity, not pretend a moral superiority when it's not in fact there, and on the inside they're full of self-indulgence. Jesus was seeking that from people from the beginning, and Jesus was proclaiming that from the beginning. And that's why he had significant amount of time for people that were he knew were in serious moral bankrupt. They were morally bankrupt, or they were just morally falling short, but they admitted it. They knew that they were falling short, and they came to Jesus and they knew that they were not doing well in life. And Jesus was saying, "I have time for these people. I have space. I have compassion and mercy for these people." The people that I'm most inspired by, some of them I have had the privilege of seeing what they're like in the home. I can think of pastors of churches, authors that I have admired their books over the years. One of the greatest influences in my life and a father in my life is a pastor in my life is Bill Johnson. And I have seen Bill behind closed doors. I've seen Bill act when others weren't looking in such a morally incredibly good way. I can remember Bill walking down the hallway of a church one day, the church that I was a part of for many years in California, and my wife and I saw Bill do something that no one else saw. And Bill walked past someone that was not doing so well in life. They were quite poor. You could tell by their clothes. They seemed to come off the street. And when no one was kind of looking, but my wife and I saw it, Bill put a significant amount of cash in that person's pocket. No one was looking. I don't think anyone would have seen it, maybe just a few like my wife and I, but Bill put this significant amount of money in that person's pocket when no one was looking. That for me is the way of Jesus. When no one's looking, how do you act? When people aren't watching, how do you act? Do you act morally right? Do you act in a righteous way? That's what Jesus was saying he was seeking from people. Jesus is seeking for us to act like Bill did that day, to not just show moral superiority or morally good behavior when people are looking, but what does it look like when behind closed doors? What do our lives look like when no one's looking? What does it look like in our home? How are we treating our family? How do we respond to our family? What does it look like when we're tired, exhausted, under pressure? Do we act in a righteous way in those moments? Jesus is seeking for us to be authentic, to be real before him, because he sees it all anyway, and he has no time, no tolerance for hypocritical behavior and falsehood. But we can be encouraged today that we can come to Jesus being real, being true to who we are, be honest with him about the condition of our lives, outwardly and inwardly. And that's the kind of person that Jesus is saying, I can change, transform, I can make into the image, God's saying I can make into the image of my perfect Son. Hope that encourages you today. God bless you.